I just wanted for us to talk a little bit about the experiences that we have with our students in the class and what we think really is the biggest challenge. And the biggest challenge as far as instruction is concerned, especially if we think about what our current breed of students really are, very technology oriented. One really huge challenge that the current breed of students that we have are facing, which is a huge distraction in terms of everything that they're trying to do, is lack of focus. It's so hard to get them to focus. How can we as professors help them to actually get focus as far as what we are teaching is concerned? And so that's how I got into, okay, so big idea, smallest, then get everything that they need. And in direct relationship to that, I always thought about, well, in my classroom, here is what it is that I really want to have them capture. The one idea that I'd like them to be able to capture in this class, and what's in it for them regarding that one idea. So I would collapse my learning outcomes or learning objectives for the course and just tell them, by the end of this semester, at the completion of this course, you should at least be able to do this. So that then everything else will crop from that. Then I would then explain how, the sub-learning outcomes are connected to that huge overarching learning outcome. As you prepare to teach your courses, what is the one big idea, what is the one big concept you would like your students to, at least by the completion of the course, by the time they're completing the course, would have? Something that they'll take from your class from an overarching stance.
That languages are interesting. I mean, in modern languages,
right.
Whatever it, French, Russian, the fact that you speak English, and now when you're through with us, you will be able, hopefully, to the same ideas to someone who speaks Russian, to someone who speaks French, to someone who speaks Chinese.
What Gabe has said, I mean, that exactly, so it's how do you move from point A to point B? Okay? From point A to point B, where you're over here and you want to get here. With a variety of people coming from different cultures. I'm from Kenya originally, so I speak Swahili, and I speak Luo, and then I speak English. At least I know I speak English. Someone else?
To understand how science works to come to explanations.
So how do they get from the point of view of, okay, I'm getting into a biology class, and then from biology to understanding science. It's, in short, making those connections, starting from the big ideas into the small ideas, so that at the end of the course, at the end of the program, at the end of that educational experience, they're able to see what they learned in a variety of ways, and not just from a big idea, but they can be able to see the connections between that and other things that are related to it. The session objectives for today is we're going to look at really what concept maps are. What do they mean? And then secondly, we look at some of the historical and theoretical underpinnings. We'll look at the parts of a concept map. We'll look at how they can be helpful in terms of assessment. We'll look at some of the examples from different areas. We will look at research that actually shows that concept maps can be very helpful in terms of enhancing student learning in any discipline. And then finally, we'll look at some of the tools that are available, which are actually free of charge. All the ones that I'm going to show you today are free of charge. They are readily available online. So concept map, the idea came from Novak, Joseph Novak out of Cornell. And it really came from brain research. And what he did was he thought about, well, when students learn concepts in any area, the connection between those concepts helps them in terms of creation of new knowledge. Without relationship between concepts, understanding and creation of new knowledge is actually not possible. Okay? It's all about words and connected to words that have ideas behind them, and then creation of thinking and creation of understanding and reasoning then leads to creation of new knowledge. Concept map, there are so many definitions of it, but the one that I chose, which is I think simple, is graphical tools for organizing and representing information or knowledge. That's really what it is. This is a picture of our human brain. The whole thing begins from here, and it's more of, so what are we seeing? What are we thinking about? What is the connection between them? If students cannot do that, then they cannot learn. If they cannot learn, then they can't really create knowledge. Okay? Which is what we want them to do. We want them to be able to not just get the facts, but go to the next level where they can actually use the facts, apply the facts, think critically, think analytically, synthesize, evaluate, compare and contrast. In our brains, we have neurons that do help, that actually play a very important part as far as movement of information is concerned and connection of ideas is concerned. And we do this from the time that we are little kids until we are old. Okay? Actually, when messages are passed, information is passed within the brain and understanding is taking place, reasoning is taking place, there is actually a physical movement or physical contact between the neurons for that whole process to take place. Aristotle once said that without images, thinking is just not possible. So if we cannot, and as you can see, everything is about connecting and connection and connecting and connection. So without really anything that backs our thinking, anything that backs our concepts, anything that backs our words, it's not easy to think. If you actually think about it, then it's impossible to think about anything without relating it to some kind of an image. Seeing the world is mapping the world. Evidence of what learning is all about and making the world, making learning a visible experience. Adding a picture does increase recollection of up to 65%. Research by Medina confirmed that. And just to give you more information about this, in about 1967, there is a professor, I think, out of North Carolina, that showed his students 612 pictures, images. And right after the class, he kind of showed the pictures on the wall and asked how many of them how many of the pictures they could remember. And on average, students could remember at least 97% of those pictures. 3 days after, he did exactly the same exercise. What they could remember actually went down to 75. And then after 30 days, it went down to 58. Which means you can look at something, but then without making connections, the recollection just reduces. Just to give an example from geography. If I was teaching a course about geography, focusing or beginning with the 5 themes of geography, which are location, place, movement, human interaction, and region, see, I could just list them like that and talk about them. But this provides a lot more information. We let students retain a lot more. It captures a lot as far as the whole teaching and learning process is concerned, and retention is higher with this. This concept map was developed by Novak as a way to help educators to see the rationale behind helping students to connect different concepts and different ideas within different disciplines. And as you can see, really, it shows, and I just want to explain the different areas or the different, what makes up a concept map. Anything in yellow are more of, those are concepts. So hierarchy, knowledge or understanding, concepts, those are concepts. Then we have words that connect them, and those are links. So for a concept map to be concept map, really, what is required are two concepts that, in a way, make up a proposition, and then a link between them that tells you how they are connected. Now, as you can see, this makes a lot of sense, that concept maps, actually, it defines it, displays concepts connected with linking words. Concept maps represents knowledge and understanding, has hierarchy, or has a structure. Knowledge and understanding is constructed with prior knowledge, new information. So as you can see, that everything is well connected. It's well connected. Can you imagine having something like this for the course you'll be teaching from Monday? And the impact that this is going to have as far as your students' ability to connect concepts in your course is concerned. It can be a powerful tool. Now, let's look at some of the advantages of concept mapping. Number one is that students can be able to think critically, because when you challenge them to connect ideas, it forces them to think about how they are related. Either how the two words are related, or the two concepts are related, or how they're related with a given diagram or a picture. It does reveal prior knowledge, so it does help a great deal in terms of remembering what they've learned before. And as we all know, really, knowledge always starts from the building blocks. So it's like you start from what students know. Start from what they know, bringing them to what they actually are not quite aware of. With that, then they're going to be able to create new knowledge. But if it doesn't start from what they know, it's going to be all over the place. Students are able to see and really comprehend what's going on over time. They can be able to identify misconceptions. As far as teaching practice is concerned, and I just want to post this to you. If you think about your own class, what do you think would be some of the advantages of concept maps?
The thing that makes the concept map useful is the way in which it sketches relationships, right?
Yes, sir.
And so it kind of works like, in the same way that you presenting a lecture presents a certain kind of cut on the information, that we choose to talk about some things first and some things later. You're simply organizing these things spatially. It wouldn't necessarily have to be the sort of definitive expert version of the concept map that ends up being up there. But you could think about the relationship between, okay, how is it that a professional in my field organizes this set of knowledge, ancillary or tertiary, compared to students who maybe get a list and assume that all things are of relatively equal importance because they're all interrelated. I think the fact that you can draw out the relationship between them gives students a way of thinking about them so that they're not 11 individual discrete elements, but rather a series of concepts where one leads to the next, leads to the next, leads to the next.
So you're describing it as a path through the information as opposed to a depiction of actual relationships between concepts.
Right.
Concept maps are hierarchical by nature to depict processes. So you begin from the big idea. How is it connected to the other smaller idea? Yes, sir.
Abstraction is probably the oldest tool that human beings have. When they first came up with abstraction, that's when conscious thought emerged. And it's been our most successful tool. But the great thing about abstraction is also the difficult thing about it. You're taking something concrete, you're creating an abstract model, and the human brain has trouble mapping to it. With these concept maps, we're giving flesh to an abstract idea. We're making it incarnate in a way that is almost concrete. So you can look at it as an abstraction and then map it generically onto other things, but understand it in and of itself in the same way you could a concrete concept.
There's not really a perfect concept map. The idea is to really help students to make the connection that can help them, at the minimum, to understand what's going on in a classroom and what's in it for them in terms of acquisition of those learning outcomes that you have or learning objectives that you have in your syllabus. It's always, there's always continuation of, okay, well, I'm thinking about this differently. Part of it could blossom into something different or could be developed further. So there can't really be anything like a perfect map. Concept maps are not limited to just the use of words. You could actually put pictures in place of those words and then link, use words to link them. You can, yeah.
You note that image recognition that helps with memory, Another thing that is even more powerful, research has shown with memory, is narrative. And narrative recall is extraordinarily high. And these concept maps, they almost have a narrative-like structure in the way that you trace through them. They have their own syntax. It's very interesting because it seems like that in and of itself would enable greater recall of that than, say, a list of concepts.
And I think would make students improve their level of understanding and grasp of the material, much better than if they just read and crammed the words. With pictures and connections, they are able to go a lot farther than that. So facilitation of learning and creation of knowledge frameworks, research evidence. These are just additional research evidence that are actually more connected to assessment, you know, leading to better recall, improving critical thinking or higher order thinking, higher order learning, promotes active learning. And you can have concept maps really at the individual. You can have students do them at the individual level, or you can have them do it as a group. You can have the entire class as a group. You know, however you really want them to do it, and the purpose for which you actually have that activity, will define how you want to do it. Here are some tools that can be used for this purpose. Microsoft Word, which we all use, and has very, very good structure for concept mapping. Using the smart art, you can easily create a good concept map of any phenomena. Mindomo.com, more than 10 students, actually I think it's up to 10 students, can work on a single concept map at the same time. So it's pretty powerful. It's free. Poplet is another one. This uses images and words. CMap is one of the mostly used as concept map tools. It also allows for various students or people to actually use the same concept map or work on the same concept map simultaneously. View. This was designed out of Tufts University in Massachusetts, and it's free of charge. It's a really cool program, again, for concept mapping. Bubble is another one. Prezi is another one, free of charge. Okay. How many of you have heard of mind mapping? Okay. Do you know what's the difference between the two? Mind mapping, concept mapping. Friends?
The linking.
The linking. What's up with the linking?
Well, in mind mapping, it's just kind of showing this thing's related to this thing's related to this thing. But in concept mapping, those linking nodes seem really important.
So mind mapping does not have the nodes. It doesn't have the words that connect the two concepts, the two concepts. Okay? While concept mapping actually does have that.
She was going to say it's more brainstorming than without the hierarchy or prioritized line connections.
That's remember in the beginning when I spoke about the brain research and that being the origin, really, the origins from which Novak and his colleagues came up with concept mapping. Concept mapping it's been there for quite a while, but only used in certain areas. Nursing uses it a lot. The colleges of medicine use it a lot because of what they do. But it's actually applicable in any discipline.
Do you have any resources for using concept maps, quantifying your assessment of concept maps? So let's say that I wanted to do this as like a group activity in class, and then assign some points based on the quality of their concept map.
Oh.
So are there rubrics, like example rubrics that we could see as to how we might be able to implement that?
There are rubrics available out there for concept mapping. A rubric is basically a scoring criteria. Okay. So in this case, it will be you've given students an assignment to come up with concept maps, either at the individual level, group level, or the entire class. And you want to measure, or you want to find out the extent to which their concept maps have met your expectations. So they measure the quality of their concept maps. So here you would have criteria, and then you would have levels of performance over here, where this could be exemplary, this could be good, this could be fair and poor. And then here you might have things that have to do with maybe organization. You may have things like nodes, and you can have concept. And then over here, you're trying to explain what an excellent or exemplary concept map is going to look at relative to how the contents are organized. Nodes are organized, whether the nodes make sense, the links make sense. Are the concepts really related? Are they shown in a way that they're related? Thank you so much. Are there any questions?